Hello there friends, it's your old pal Video Jockey. Sounds like you missed me. Of course I could be wrong, but we're only human earth people, so who knows. Today I want to talk about something very important. Actually, over the course of a few months it has been suggested by a lot of you guys, which still boggles my mind that people actually care about my opinion, but I digress. A lot of you guys want me to talk about the representation of mental illness and disorders in animation. The usual good and bad sides of representation, that is. I've gotten this as a request pretty much anytime I ask you guys on suggestions for a new video. Truth be told, I've always strayed away from it in the beginning because I didn't really know if I was fit for the job, but your boy Joseph does his homework. Sometimes. So I asked you beautiful beanbags for some characters with any form of mental illness or disorder, and I was surprised with a lot of the results. Though there was or is a bit of a problem with what some of you guys sent to me. For now though, essentially I'm here to tell you why representation like this or of any kind is important and how I believe it should be done. As I'm sure all of you know, my opinions on representation are pretty clear. I'm gonna be brief because minority representation is pretty much the same across the board for me, and I don't really want to repeat myself for 10 minutes. Meaning that, as I always say, they should be represented and portrayed in an accurate, normal light. They're beautiful people too. Now let's get into some characters.
Round one.
It's no secret to a lot of you that Steven Universe has great figures for representation when dealing with representation. Though the show isn't by any means at all perfect, it does do a lot for representation. See, if you guys didn't know already by my skittish presence, I deal with a lot of anxiety pretty much daily. My recordings are usually billions and billions of takes because, you know, I'm talking so fast and on the brink of another panic attack. But having a loving audience like you guys definitely does help. Whenever I feel like things are getting too crazy though, I listen to Here Comes a Thought from Steven Universe. If you didn't know, this song was written to specifically help people deal with anxiety. It certainly helps me with lyrics like, I'm losing sight, I'm losing touch. All these little things seem to matter so much. People don't really realize how having anxiety makes you think about all the little things that you shouldn't worry about. But you do. And personally, I'm very grateful that this song does exist. Now on to specific characters from Steven Universe. Lapis Lazuli is implied to have some sort of mental disorder, and while a lot of people say it's depression, I'd say she, along with Pearl, align more with PTSD. PTSD, short for post-traumatic stress disorder, is a condition of persistent mental and emotional stress occurring as a result of injury or severe psychological shock, typically involving disturbance of sleep and constant vivid recall of the experience with dulled responses to others and to the outside world. Now, I don't know about you, but to me that perfectly sounds a lot like Pearl and Lapis. They both represent different sides of PTSD and stress-related disorders. Obviously, both struggle from emotional stress, Pearl at the result of psychological shock and Lapis being at the result of injury and psychological shock. Being trapped in that mirror for a very long period of time, just forgotten and just done away with and forgotten the time. In the episode Rose's Scabbard, Pearl gets really upset after seeing Rose's stuff and how Steven talks about her when he pulls the stuff out of Lion. As you can see, indeed, the memories do make her very upset. In a single pale Rose, Pearl can't even bring herself to tell Steven the truth about Rose and Pink Diamond as a result of what Rose told her back then. She was ready to live her life out with Rose, and then Rose met Greg, and we all know how that turned out. Pearl and Lapis seem to suffer from common avoidance symptoms, and where a person will stay away from places and objects associated with the trauma, or attempt to completely ignore any thoughts or feelings related to it. Anytime Rose is brought up, Pearl clearly and definitely seems to try to distance herself. In Alone at Sea, these avoidance symptoms are clearly visible when Lapis not wanting to get on a boat from her unfusing with Macalite with Jasper. Of course, her fusing with Jasper can be seen as an abusive relationship, arguably going both ways. Another Steven Universe character that seems very apparently a figure for mental health and disorders would be Peridot. Finally, for once, I feel like you guys are going to be on the learning end here, because a lot of you probably unknowingly suggested characters with autism as a character with a mental illness. See, the whole reason why I worded the title of this video to include mental illness and disorders is for that very reason. You see, autism isn't a mental illness, it's more of a developmental disorder, and is one of the most, and if not the most unique and varying of its category. Autism is on a spectrum, meaning there are multiple levels on it in which people experience it differently. Basically, one autistic person's experience experience with autism might be drastically different from another's. It all depends on where they lie on the spectrum. With that, let's take a look at Peridot. Now, there's a great video from Toon Ruins that explains this in depth, so I'll summarize and you definitely should watch her video. That link will be in the description. Peridot, just like many autistic people on the spectrum that she seems to be representing, takes things literally and doesn't exactly understand social cues or jokes. To others, she's seen as apathetic or non-caring when she just doesn't understand how to convey caring emotions on the outside. Peridot has a hard time maintaining relationships and often accidentally offends those she cares about. Garnet has to explain Ruby and Sapphire's relationship to Peridot using Percy and Pierre to get her to understand what kind of relationship they have. She hisses at people when she's overstimulated, and when she discovers her metal powers, it's because she felt useless due to her not having her limb enhancers and used them as a crutch instead of focusing on her difference from the average person and how it makes her special. Peridot is a great figure for representation to me that I really identify with. She's an example of how people on the spectrum can blossom and form great relationships with people in the right environment. That being a very encouraging one that treats her not like a mistake, but as a person, unlike how she used to be treated on Homeworld, and I just love her. I love her a lot. Two others who aren't really talked about as far as I've seen as representation for autism would be both Clarence and Jeff from, well, Clarence. Just like Lapis and Pearl for PTSD, they both exemplify different traits of the disorder. Clarence seems to be sometimes apathetic or non-caring when he just doesn't understand the situation. Jeff can take a lot of things literally and does not understand the humor behind certain things. Clarence, when talking about social cues, can be a little off, but that's to be expected when you're a bit younger. However, Jeff seems to be on the more introverted side of issues with people skills. If you've watched OKKO, also Dendi seems to exemplify these traits. I hope that any of you guys on the spectrum can identify with at least one of these beautiful beings. Peridot is personally my perfect example of representation that I resonate with. I just love her so much. Side note, Pidge is literally just human Peridot. They're both green.
When you know nothing matters, the universe is yours. And I've never met a universe that was into it. The universe is basically an animal. It grazes on the ordinary. Creates infinite idiots just to eat them. Not unlike your friend Timmy.
Tommy.
Yeah, hardly matters now, sweetie. You know, smart people get a chance to climb on top, take reality for a ride, but it'll never stop trying to throw you, and eventually it will. There's no other way off.
Now, I think it's pretty cool that Rick made one offhand comment that confirmed he was autistic, but also he's a clear figure of representation for depression. With how often people make fun of the Rick and Morty fandom, we think it'd be played up for laughs, but no. Rick's a solid example. Like I said in my subtext video, he exemplifies a lot of depressive traits. He's as existential as they come for a good reason. He can literally do anything he wants to, and which away makes it worse, because when you can or probably have done everything, to some people, nothing matters. He's abrasive and closed when it comes to his emotions, has an evident drinking problem, is suicidal, and tries to push people away in order to not hurt them. His complex is very interesting and deep, all jokes aside of the "to be fair you have to be an intellectual" memes. After all, his catchphrase literally translates to "I am in great pain, please help me." You know, sometimes you just don't care, and that's just how life is. I tend to sometimes get really existential, and although it is pretty fun to explore, sometimes that can really mess with your head. I personally think that Rick's a great character to identify with regarding representation. Just don't be like one of those people and say something like, "I identify with Rick because I'm so smart and everyone is beneath me and I'm plagued by my own smarts. This is so sad." Yeah, please don't be that person. At that point, you just kind of sound like a brainlet. Hey guys, I've never really done one of these editors like note type things, but this is being recorded as I'm editing the video. I'm like 50% done. Obviously it's gonna be done. Oh, it's done while you're seeing this right now because, you know, you're watching it. But in light of recent events, I just want to clarify that the next part of my video is going to be talking about suicidal tendencies and thoughts and, you know, going more into depression. And I just want to clarify that if you or anyone you know is feeling this type of way, I know it sounds super cliche, but I myself can, you know, I know it doesn't mean much, but if you want to talk to me, I'm here to always have a conversation if you need me. And you know, you guys are people, and I'm here for all of you. So again, my DMs, Discord, you know, Twitter, Instagram, anything, I'm always open if you want to talk to me. Just know that mental health is a serious thing that a lot of people take light of and are desensitized towards too, and thus don't really, you know, think about as much. But you know, we never truly know what's going on with the person until, you know, it's too late sometimes. But you know, if you're feeling some type of way, I'd like for it to never be too late. And so again, those things will be in the description, and I'm here for you. Just always, guys, please take care of yourselves. Now, a little over a year ago, I was recommended to watch a movie from a friend. That movie is A Silent Voice. Now, trigger warning here, as this movie seriously tackles the idea and mindset around depression. It does so with its main character, Shoya. You see, in the beginning of this movie, it opens up with Shoya ready to commit suicide. He hears fireworks and then recalls his childhood for the duration of the movie, so we can essentially see what led him here. See, in the beginning of the manga that this movie's adapting, there's a scene that's cut in the movie adaptation for runtime. Shoya is basically having his first existential crisis with thinking about how he's growing up and how lonely and boring that'll be. And see, he wants to be entertained and keep the fun going and for it to not stop, and he vows to the readers that, you know, it'll continue. Back in the day, Shoya was very indifferent and used his classmates as entertainment. And then a girl showed up, Shoko. Her classmates bullied the absolute shit out of her as a result of finding her irritating because she's deaf. After the principal hears about the bullying, everyone turns on Shoya and he's subjected to the same harassment Shuko was. Now in high school, Shoya remains a social reject, having grown to accept his past as a punishment. Full of nothing but guilt and anxiety, he blocks out the faces of those around him, being unable to look them in the eye. Clearly being isolated for his actions has taken a toll on him through high school. I don't want to spoil this movie because you should watch it definitely. The way he views his peers and the people around him deteriorates for the absolute worst. It's very apparent that he has depression. I myself have been in a very dark, depressed state, actually around this time last year. You tend to not care about anything and not have the drive to do anything. And well, isolate yourself. The thinking you go through is unhealthy and sometimes you know it, but you can't stop it. Or you just simply don't have the drive to stop it. Again, I don't really want to spoil much by any means, but you really get in his head in this movie and he gets in a really dark place. If you haven't seen this movie, please do. It's great and you are too. And now what a lot of people will point out is that where there's good representation, there's always problematic or even bad rep too. Viewers here aren't new to this at all in the slightest. I brought up how frequently a lot of people tend to romanticize and or trivialize mental illness and disorders. And that is not only problematic, but very harmful. In order to romanticize something, it's to describe something in a very idealized or unrealistic fashion, and it makes something seem significantly better than it actually is. The problem that I'm talking about is when people write in disorders or illnesses for the sake of being quirky or played up for laughs. If anything, that does nothing but hurt the people being represented. Now, I'm sure a lot of you weebs have heard of Soul Eater, and as soon as I said Soul Eater, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know who I'm talking about. Death the Kid has OCD. It's his whole thing that's literally played up for laughs. Sure, he's more than his OCD, but it's played up as the absolute butt of jokes when it comes to him. Oh man, their boobs aren't symmetrical. Aha, so funny. Oh, he spends forever writing his name on a test to get it to look right because he obsesses over it. I get that it's funny to some people, but a lot of others, rightfully in my opinion, don't think so. It shouldn't be played up as a cool or quirky thing to have. There are lots of people with OCD that go through stress about it every day. It can be crippling for some people. When some of those people see this and see other people saying things like, oh, Death the Kid made OCD look sexy and, you know, all those stupid things, then that's crushing for them. It doesn't educate people and it doesn't reassure people. All it does is bait the self-diagnosis Tumblr crowd. And no one likes the self-diagnosis Tumblr crowd. In the end, representation is always important. Although bad rep is harmful, it in some way helps because it sparks the conversation and talk between us. Being critical of media, of course, in my opinion, is very important. There are examples all around us, and some are frankly better than others. I'm just here to spout belligerent nonsense in your ears for a few minutes as usual. Thanks for watching. I know it's been a while since I've done a longer form video, but here it is. I hope that you enjoyed the usual business. I have a Discord server and you should join if you want. Follow me on Twitter and maybe you might see me get suspended for no reason again. But there is an announcement that I think you guys should hear. The weekend of July 26th through the 28th, I shall be attending MechaCon. I'll be in a Spider-Verse cosplay because, you know, that's what I want to do. I just want an excuse to walk around in spandex. You know, that's literally the only reason why. So if you want to say hi, if you're in the area, you know, just say hi. I probably won't scream and slowly inch away from you. I'd probably ask you, why are you interested in my videos at all? That's probably what I'll do. In the meantime, I'm Veritas Joe, and I hope you guys have a great weekend, and again, thank you, you beautiful batch of beanbags. I'm also probably on a spectrum, and I'm not joking.
Stop it. They like attention.